Hello and thank you for taking time to watch our GFN5. Today, I'll share with you the results from a short, randomized, controlled study looking at what happens when adults who smoke switch to one of our tobacco heating systems utilizing different heating technologies. First, let me start with explaining why burning versus heating tobacco matters. The harm from cigarette smoking doesn't primarily come from the tobacco per se, or from nicotine. It comes from the chemicals that are formed and emitted when tobacco combusts. When a cigarette burns, temperatures can exceed 800 degrees Celsius. Those high temperatures drive chemical reactions that generate most of the harmful and potentially harmful chemicals found in cigarette smoke. Heated tobacco products work differently. They heat the tobacco without burning it. By avoiding combustion altogether, they avoid many of those high-temperature reactions, and as a result emit far fewer and much lower levels of harmful chemicals. This difference in chemistry is well established. We already know that exposure to harmful chemicals is reduced when combustion is avoided. In this study, we asked how similar those exposure reductions are when different heating technologies are compared head-to-head. To answer that, we conducted a 5-day randomized, controlled study in adults who smoke. Participants were first assessed at baseline and then randomized into one of 4 arms. They either continued smoking cigarettes or switched to one of the 3 tobacco heating systems. A blade system commercialized as IQOS 3 or one of the 2 versions of IQOS Illuma induction heating system. The study was conducted in a controlled, confined setting to minimize variability from factors like diet or environment and allow a direct comparison of exposure outcomes between the different heating technologies. Participants used their assigned products freely over the 5-day exposure period, with exposure assessed using a panel of validated biomarkers as well as nicotine. Additionally, product use, safety, and subjective experience were captured. Before looking at exposure, we first need to understand how participants actually used the products after switching. Otherwise, any exposure differences could simply reflect changes in consumption rather than differences in the aerosol itself. In the cigarette group, daily cigarette consumption remained stable over the 5 days. In contrast, participants who switched to a tobacco heating system showed a short adjustment period, with product use increasing during the first few days and stabilizing by around day 3, consistent with a short-term behavioral adaptation. Importantly, nicotine exposure, measured using total nicotine equivalents in urine, remained fairly stable across all groups throughout the study. Taken together, this tells us that participants were able to switch to the tobacco heating systems while maintaining comparable nicotine exposure, providing the right context for interpreting the exposure results that follow. Now let's turn to the core question of the study: what happened to exposure in participants who switched from cigarettes to tobacco heating systems? At day 5, participants who completely switched from cigarettes to any of the tobacco heating systems showed statistically significant reductions across all measured biomarkers of exposure compared with those who continued smoking. Importantly, while there was some variability in absolute levels, the magnitude of exposure reduction was remarkably similar across all 3 heating technologies, regardless of whether the system used blade-based or induction-based heating. We also looked at how participants experienced the products after switching. At day 5, overall product experience scores for the tobacco heating systems were broadly similar across the different products. Some domains, such as satisfaction and respiratory tract sensation, differed compared with cigarettes, while the others were comparable. Taken together, these results indicate that short-term switching was feasible. To summarize, switching from cigarettes to the different tobacco heating systems resulted in substantially lower exposure to harmful chemicals compared with continued smoking. These exposure reductions were consistent across the different heating technologies, while nicotine exposure remained broadly stable. Subjective product experience measures at day 5 were broadly comparable across the tobacco heating systems. Even though this was a short-term, confined study and does not assess biological changes or long-term risks, the results reinforce the conclusion that removing combustion is the key driver of reduced exposure. So, to come back to the original question, once combustion is removed, the specific way tobacco is heated makes relatively little difference to exposure outcomes. Thank you for your attention. To learn more about PMI's scientific research, please visit pmiscience.com.